Okay, let's unpack this. Uh, if you've ever looked into the Odoo world, maybe for a job, maybe trying to build a team, it can get confusing. Like,
Oh, definitely. Navigating those job titles is tricky.
yeah, like, is everyone just a consultant? What's the difference? What does a developer really do day to day?
It's a really common point of confusion, and you see in a field growing as fast as Odoo, things can get
Hmm.
blurry. Definitions aren't always standard everywhere.
Absolutely. And that exact confusion is something a really interesting YouTube source we looked at tackles directly. We heard from an expert, someone with like decades of ERP experience.
Right, a good chunk of that specifically with Odoo itself.
Exactly. And they have this really strong take on what the Odoo job market should actually look like.
It's quite a compelling argument they make. They basically believe Odoo needs to move towards having really distinct specialized job roles. Just like the big established ERPs, your SAPs, your Dynamics, Oracle. And from their viewpoint, that kind of specialization, it's pretty crucial if Odoo wants to be seen as a, quote, respectable program in that enterprise space.
But it's not just about the ideal, is it? They really contrast that vision with what they're seeing now, or at least in some places.
Yeah, they draw a sharp contrast. They
Yep.
observe that right now, particularly in certain regions they mentioned, like in Egypt or the Arab world, you often find people wearing loads of different hats,
Doing a bit of everything.
pretty much covering a huge range of tasks.
Yeah.
And the expert uses this really vivid local term for it,
Yeah.
something that translates roughly to digging and filling.
Digging and filling. So like unstructured work, just jumping on whatever needs doing.
Essentially, yeah. Unstructured, maybe less defined, all over the place hard work. That's the picture they paint of the less specialized reality. And that digging and filling phrase, fahatwa daradam, it's sort of central to their critique. They see it as maybe a phase, but not the end point, not the way to maturity for the ecosystem. So they don't just identify the problem, they offer a solution, a specific breakdown of what these specialized roles should be, and importantly, what skills you actually need to succeed.
Okay, so that's our goal for you listening. In this deep dive, we want to distill that expert's viewpoint. We'll walk through their ideal landscape of Odoo roles, the skills they say are vital.
Yep.
So by the end, you should have a much clearer map, let's say, of potential Odoo careers and what success looks like, at least according to this one expert's perspective. Sound good?
Let's dig in.
All right, so first, let's talk about this expert's background because it kind of shapes their whole argument, right?
It really does. The source mentions they have, 26 years in ERP overall?
Yeah, 26 years stated, and then specifically 10 to 12 years focused just on Odoo and, its predecessors like OpenOffice.
And having that breadth, seeing how other big ERP systems structure their teams and projects, that's why their call for specialization in Odoo feels significant. They've seen the models that work for complex, large-scale stuff.
Right. They're arguing that Odoo needs that same level of role definition to be credible for bigger projects.
Exactly. It's about professionalizing the whole Odoo ecosystem, making it more robust and, respectable in the eyes of larger enterprises.
And that contrast they mentioned with the current situation in some areas, the digging and filling.
Yeah, that fahatur adam. They pinpoint it as something they see more commonly in regions like Egypt and the Arab world, where one person might be juggling configuration, maybe some coding, support calls, even helping out with sales demos.
Wow, that's a lot for one person.
It is, and look, the expert isn't saying people aren't working hard doing that. They acknowledge the effort.
Sure.
But their point is more strategic. They argue that this lack of clear structure, this one-person band approach, it ultimately holds back the ability to develop deep expertise in one area, and maybe hinders the scalability of projects, preventing Odoo from reaching its full potential as a truly enterprise-grade platform in those contexts.
Okay, so it really sets the stage for why they think defining these roles is so critical. It's not just neat org charts, it impacts the outcome.
Precisely. It moves the conversation from, we just get it done somehow, to here's a structured way to build teams and careers for better results.
And they actually lay out a framework, don't they? They propose specific roles.
They do. They outline, I think it was 10 distinct positions that they see as making up a well-structured Odoo operation, whether it's a partner company or even an internal team.
Okay, let's dive into those. Where do they start? The functional consultant, right? What's their core job in this ideal model?
So according to this expert, the functional consultant is absolutely key. They're the bridge, really, between the client's business reality and the Odoo system.
The translator almost.
In a way, yeah. Their main job is to deeply understand what the company actually needs Odoo to do for them. So that means gathering all those detailed requirements, then configuring Odoo to match those business processes, training the actual users at the client company, and sorting out problems during the main project phase. They might even help prep demos for the sales guys sometimes.
And the source mentioned this role gets mixed up with another one sometimes.
Yes, they flag that often. In that less specialized digging and filling world, the lines get blurred between the functional consultant and the implementation consultant. But the expert argues strongly they should be separate roles.
Okay, so if functional is about understanding needs and configuring, what's the implementation consultant's specific lane?
Their main focus, as the source defines it, is more on the technical side of actually getting the system up and running. A big part of that is data migration.
Ah, getting the old data in.
Exactly. Pulling all that vital info from old systems into Odoo, critical step. And they're also the key support people during that nail-biting go-live phase.
When they flip the switch.
Right. When the client officially starts running their business on Odoo. The source does admit, though, that in the real world, this role often ends up doing functional tasks too, back to that blurred lines issue.
Gotcha. Okay, moving up the ladder. The Odoo project manager. Sounds like the conductor of the orchestra.
That's a great way to put it. The expert definitely positions the Odoo PM as the central orchestrator. They oversee the whole project.
Start to finish.
Yep. Managing the different teams, functional, implementation support. They're setting the timeline, figuring out who and what is needed, making sure the quality is there, the system actually works as intended. And they handle the final handover and all the major communication, especially with the client's leadership.
So a really pivotal role.
Absolutely. The source specifically calls out the PM and the functional consultant as being like the linchpins. And they need detailed knowledge of Odoo's actual features, its apps, what it can and can't do. You need that product knowledge to sell effectively in this space.
Makes sense. You need to talk the talk.
Definitely. And the source notes they often team up with a functional consultant, especially for demos, to show exactly how Odoo fits a specific client's needs.
Then there was another role, more strategic, business analyst or advisor.
Yes, exactly. This role, as they describe it, operates a bit higher up. They work with the company owners or senior managers, often early on, to grasp the big picture business goals.
Before implementation really kicks off.
Often, yes, or during the initial strategy phase. Their job is to advise on which Odoo apps or modules are the right strategic fit to help the company achieve those larger objectives.
Okay, and what about managing Odoo inside a company once it's running?
Right, that's the system admin. This person handles the internal day-to-day management of Odoo. Think user accounts, permissions, setting up workflows within the system, maybe installing smaller apps from the Odoo store.
Seems straightforward.
Well, yes, but the source makes an interesting point here. How this role works can vary a lot. In a dedicated Odoo partner company, it might be a clear, defined role. But inside a regular company using Odoo, those duties might get spread thin, maybe fall onto one IT person who's juggling other things, potentially lacking deep Odoo technical know-how. It can reflect that digging and filling thing internally too. They framed communication skills as paramount, like one of the most vital skills for any job, full stop, but especially here.
Why so critical in Odoo?
Well, think about it. You're constantly interacting with PMs, with developers, with the client's users, with company owners. You need to listen properly, explain complex things clearly, make sure everyone's aligned. Bad communication can just sink a project.
True. And tied to that, they mentioned presentation skills.
Yeah, basically being able to articulate your work and ideas effectively. Whether that's presenting a configured solution to a client, explaining a technical challenge to a non-technical person, or demoing a feature. People need to understand what you've done or what you're proposing.
Okay, makes sense. And the last one. Sounds like maybe the most important in a fast-moving field like Odoo.
Constant learning. Yeah, the expert was incredibly emphatic about this. They described Odoo as being on this fast evolving trend trajectory in the ERP world.
Meaning it changes quickly?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
And their warning was pretty stark. The platform, the ecosystem, it's developing so rapidly that if you're not actively, continuously learning, updating your skills, you will get left behind.
So standing still means falling back.
In their view, absolutely. Stagnation basically equals becoming obsolete in this field. You have to keep learning.
Wow. That constant learning point really ties it all together, doesn't it? It fuels your ability to actually do those specialized roles effectively as the system itself keeps changing.
It really does. You see, what this expert provided in the source material is essentially a potential roadmap. It's a way to think beyond that generalist digging and filling model.
Right.
And see a clearer vision of distinct career paths, along with the fundamental skills needed to build a real, sustainable professional career in Odoo.
So for you listening, whether you're just starting to explore Odoo, or maybe you're already in it and thinking about your next move, or even if you're on the business side trying to structure your team or choose a partner, this breakdown gives you specific roles to think about and a clear list of competencies that this expert, at least, considers absolutely non-negotiable for success.
And it kind of leaves you with a question, doesn't it? How does this very specialized model they've laid out stack up against your experience or understanding of the Odoo job market right now? Does it resonate? What parts stand out?
It definitely provides a lot to chew on regarding how Odoo careers could be structured, and maybe should be, if the field is going to mature as this expert suggests.
Agreed. It's a strong perspective.
And with that, we've pretty much covered our deep dive into this expert's view on the Odoo job landscape, looking at the specialized roles and key skills they laid out in our source material.
Yep, we went through their whole argument, the ideal versus the digging and filling reality, the 10 specific roles from functional consultant to freelancer, and those critical underlying skills: technical, business, project management, communication, and that huge one, constant learning.
Which brings us to a final thought, really stemming from the source's perspective for you to mull over. Given how fast Odoo is evolving and this expert's strong belief that specialization is the future, just how vital, how much of a prerequisite is that personal commitment to relentless, nonstop learning for actually building a successful long-term career in this field?